There is a town in Western Australia where it is illegal to walk down the main street. The dust in the air can kill you, sometimes 40 years after you breathe it. People still go anyway. 12 abandoned places, the one at number 1. 4 people still live there, and the only way in is by train. Before we get to number 1, a ghost town where the furniture is still in the houses 60 years after everyone left. A mountain the mine removed entirely, and a town with no road in. Here is what nobody tells you about Cossack. The buildings that made it are still standing. The industry that built them left in 1886, over 100 years ago. Cossack, Pilbara, 1,500 kilometres north of Perth, 14 kilometres from Roebourne. Founded in 1863 as Tien Tsin Harbour, renamed Cossack in 1871. This was the birthplace of the entire Western Australian pearling industry. By the 1870s, up to 80 pearling luggers worked out of this port. Today, the permanent population is 1 caretaker. You are standing on the bluestone steps of the Customs House, built in 1895. Behind you is the courthouse. The Indian Ocean is 200 metres away. The buildings are intact, the streets are empty, and the air smells like salt and warm stone. It is 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, and you are completely alone. The town had Chinatown, Japtown, and Malaytown because the divers came from across Asia and the Pacific. A cyclone in 1898 wrecked every pearling vessel in the harbour. The pearling industry moved to Broome in 1886. The port closed in 1910. 8 bluestone buildings are National Trust listed. A plaque at the site does not hide the darkest part of the history. It refers to the slavery of Aboriginal men, women and children who were forced to dive for pearls in the early years of the industry. The next town did not empty out slowly. They moved it. 14 kilometres down the road, building by building, in the 1940s, what stayed behind is still there. What most people don't know about Old Halls Creek is that they moved an entire town and left the original standing in the dirt. Old Halls Creek, Kimberley region, far north of the state, 14 kilometres from the current town of Halls Creek. The site of the first official gold rush in Western Australia in 1885. At its peak, it had a hospital, post office, police station, hotel and stores. Today, the population is 0. The original settlement was abandoned through the late 1940s. Picture this: mud brick walls, half melted by 100 wet seasons. The remains of the old post office, a road that is now just a track. The Kimberley horizon is enormous and red, and the silence is the kind you can hear in your ears. You are standing where 2,000 prospectors panned for gold in 1886. The reason it died was simple. The water supply was unreliable, and the highway between Derby and Kununurra was rerouted to bypass the old site, so they moved the entire town 14 kilometres. According to the Halls Creek Visitor Centre, the ruins now include the old post office, the hospital, and police station footings. Roads in are sometimes closed during the wet season. Crocodile risk in surrounding waterways is real. Nearest hospital is 15 minutes from the new Halls Creek. The next town was demolished completely by 1992. Every building. What is left is a row of trees in perfectly straight lines where the streets used to be, and a pit of cobalt blue water where the mountain was. The thing about Goldsworthy that nobody mentions is that there is no Goldsworthy, not anymore. Goldsworthy, Pilbara region, around 30 minutes south of Pardue, on the road to Port Hedland. Built in 1964 as the first town in Australia constructed specifically for iron ore workers. By 1992, every building had been demolished. At its peak, around 700 people lived there. The mine ran from 1966 to 1982. The town stayed open as a support base for 10 years, then was closed and flattened. You drive past it and you would not know it was a town. There is a row of old trees in straight lines where the streets used to be. There is a filled-in pit that was once the mine. The water in the pit is cobalt blue against red iron cliffs. Just the trees in lines where the houses used to be. The mine itself was Mount Goldsworthy, a 132-metre high mountain, removed entirely. According to RAC Western Australia, what you see today is essentially a man-made lake. Nearest hospital is Port Hedland Regional Hospital, around an hour and a half away. The next town was abandoned in a single weekend in 1963. The mine closed on a Friday. By Monday, most people were gone. They took what they could carry and left the rest. The newspaper on the kitchen table is still from 1963. Nobody prepared you for what is still inside the houses at Gwalia. Gwalia, Goldfields Esperance region, just outside Leonora, 830 kilometres northeast of Perth. Established in 1897 during the gold rush. At its peak, more than 1,200 people lived in Gwalia. When the Sons of Gwalia mine closed unexpectedly in 1963, almost everyone left within 48 hours. The trains were free for residents leaving, and they took what they could carry. Picture this. You walk through the front door of a miner's cottage. The kettle is on the stove. There are tinned goods on the shelves. The newspaper on the table is from 1963. Outside, the iron roof is rusted to the color of the dirt. 31 buildings are preserved, including the State Hotel, the schoolhouse, and the manager's house, where Herbert Hoover lived in 1897 before becoming the 31st President of the United States. According to the Shire of Leonora, the Gwalia Museum Precinct is now one of the best preserved ghost town settlements in Australia. Hoover House operates as a bed and breakfast. Entry is free. Leonora Hospital is 15 minutes away. The next town had 12,000 residents, 16 hotels, and its own stock exchange. Today the population is 0, and the above-ground buildings are foundations. The only thing left standing is the cemetery, and the story of a priest who announced a giant gold nugget that was never produced. The strangest thing about Canona is not that it had 12,000 people and now has none. It is that someone invented a giant gold nugget to fill it back up, and it almost worked. Canona, Goldfields Esperance region, 20 kilometers northeast of Kalgoorlie, founded in 1893 after gold was found at Whitefeather Reef. At peak, Canona had 12,000 residents, 16 hotels, 8 churches, 2 breweries, a hospital, a tramway, and its own stock exchange. Today, the population is 0. You stand at the cemetery. The headstones are leaning at angles. Many date from the late 1890s. Some belong to children. The graves stretch in rows across red dirt. The town behind the cemetery is now a series of stone foundation outlines and interpretive signs. The Canona Heritage Trail walks visitors past the foundations of hotels, churches, and the old courthouse. According to the Shire of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, Canona is widely cited as Australia's largest ghost town by former population. The town also holds one of the strangest stories in WA gold rush history, the Sacred Nugget hoax, where a priest claimed knowledge of a giant nugget to draw prospectors. The nugget was never produced. Almost no above-ground buildings are left. Summer heat above 40 degrees Celsius is normal. No shade, no water, no fuel. The next town had the longest bar in Australia. 1,000 people within walking distance of it. Today the roof is gone, the bar is gone, and the Art Deco facade is standing alone in the Murchison heat. On a clear evening, it turns gold for exactly 15 minutes. What you are not told about Big Bell is that the most photographed building in the region has no roof and no floor, and nothing inside. Big Bell, Midwest region, around 24 kilometres west of Kew, 600 kilometres northeast of Perth. The town was built in 1936 to service the Big Bell gold mine. At its peak, the town had 1,000 residents, a hospital, a cinema, a school, and the Big Bell Hotel, which reportedly had the longest bar in Australia. The town was abandoned by 1955, although mining at the site itself continued in spurts until 2003. You are standing in front of the Big Bell Hotel at sunset. The 2-story Art Deco facade is intact, the roof is gone, the windows are empty. The colours of the Murchison turn the building gold for 15 minutes. The wind moves through what used to be the main bar. According to Australia's Golden Outback, the Big Bell Hotel is one of the most photographed gold rush ruins in Western Australia. Closest amenities are in Kew, 25 minutes drive. Kew has fuel and a hospital. The hotel facade is fragile and entry is unsafe. The next town still has 135 people living in it. In between the ruins, a priest architect designed the chapel and it is still used. The courthouse next to it has been closed for decades. Both are still standing on the same street. The thing nobody mentions about Yalgoo is that people still live there. Not many, but they stayed. Yalgoo, Midwest region between Geraldton and Mount Magnet, founded in 1892 during the gold rush. The current population sits at around 135 according to the most recent ABS data, down from over 1,000 at peak. It is not technically empty, but most of the town is. Crumbling stone ruins, the old courthouse, and a remarkable convent chapel designed by the priest-architect Monsignor Hawes still stand against the desert horizon. You walk down a street where every second building is an empty shell. The chapel is still in use for community events. The courthouse is closed but intact. In spring, wildflowers carpet the ground around the ruins in yellow and white. According to Tourism Western Australia, the chapel is on the Hawes Heritage Trail, a route covering churches and buildings designed by the priest architect across the Midwest. Yalgoo has a fuel stop, a small caravan park, and a roadhouse. Nearest hospital is Mount Magnet, around an hour east. The next place has a hotel that opens for a few hours a day and serves the best burger in the goldfields. What surprises people about Broad Arrow is the walls. Decades of graffiti, layered over each other, going back further than anyone who wrote it is likely to remember. Broad Arrow, Goldfields Esperance region, 38 kilometres north of Kalgoorlie, founded in 1896. At its peak, Broad Arrow had 15,000 people, 8 hotels, 2 breweries, a hospital, churches, and a stock exchange. Today, one hotel remains open, the Broad Arrow Tavern. The rest of the town is bush and ruins. You walk into the tavern. The walls are covered in graffiti, layers of it, going back decades. Someone hands you a Broady burger across a counter that has not been replaced since the 1940s. Outside, the road is empty in both directions. Across the street are the foundations of the old post office. Beyond that, just spinifex. According to the Shire of Coolgardie, Broad Arrow is one of the easiest ghost town visits from Kalgoorlie. The drive is around 40 minutes on Sealed Road. Hospital is Kalgoorlie Health Campus, around 45 minutes south. The pub closes early. There is no fuel and no shop. The next town was moved to a different site after the Cyclones kept winning. The jail at the old location is still standing. The Indian Ocean is a few hundred meters away. Nobody has lived there since 1925. Here is the part about Old Onslow that stops people. The jail is intact. The courthouse foundations are visible. The Indian Ocean is close enough to hear, and no one has lived there since 1925. Old Onslow, Pilbara region on the Ashburton River, around 40 kilometres south of current Onslow, founded in 1885 as a port town. At peak, it had a couple of hundred residents, a courthouse, police station, jail, school, and a jetty. The town was abandoned in 1925 after repeated cyclone damage and silting of the harbour. The new Onslow was built on a different site. Picture this. You drive in along an unsealed track, in a four-wheel drive, in the dry season. The ruins appear out of the spinifex. The jail is still standing. The courthouse foundations are visible. The cemetery is intact. The Indian Ocean is a few hundred meters away. According to the Onslow Visitors Centre, access requires a four-wheel drive and the road can be impassable in the wet season. Closest services are in current-day Onslow, around an hour drive. Cyclones remain a regular threat in this part of the Pilbara. There is no shade, water or fuel. The last place on this list has no road. The only way in is the Indian Pacific train, twice a week. 4 people live there permanently. The hospital sign still reads, "If you are crook, come to cook." The pool is empty, the doors are unlocked. What Leninville left behind is not a town. It is a cemetery that looks like it was left mid-sentence. Leninville, Midwest region, 10 kilometres north of Mount Magnet. Established in 1894 after gold was discovered at the nearby Leninville Reef. At its peak, around 2,000 people lived here. By the 1920s, the gold ran out and the town emptied. Today, the only structure left standing is the cemetery wall. Picture this. You walk between graves under a sky that is too big for the place. Many of the headstones are wrought iron and rusted into ornate, accidental sculptures. The graves are packed close together. Many died young, in the late 1890s. The town that surrounded the cemetery is back under the dirt. Just iron, stone, and the names. According to Shire of Mount Magnet records, the cemetery is heritage listed and has been the subject of restoration efforts. Mount Magnet, 10 kilometres south, has fuel and a hospital. Nobody goes to Wittenoom. That is the point. Wittenoom, in the Pilbara region, 1,420 kilometres north-northeast of Perth, built in 1947 as a company town for the Colonial Sugar Refining Company, mining blue asbestos out of the gorge. At its peak in 1961, the Australian Bureau of Statistics census recorded 881 residents. By 2023, the last person had been forced out by the state government. Around 20,000 people lived there at some point between the 1940s and the closure. You are standing on what used to be the main street. The mountains around you are red and ancient. Karajini National Park starts a few kilometres away. The ground at your feet is grey and fibrous. Your car is parked on a road that was paved with mine tailings. This is not a film set. This is a Tuesday. The mine ran from 1943 to 1966, then closed because of falling profits, not safety. The town was officially de-gazetted in 2007. The contaminated zone covers around 46,800 hectares, the largest contaminated site in the Southern Hemisphere. Over 2,000 former residents and workers have died from asbestos-related diseases, according to the Australian Asbestos Network. Mesothelioma has an average life expectancy of 9 months from diagnosis to death. One former resident, interviewed by the ABC, put it simply, "We did not know. No one told us anything. Wittenoom is genuinely closed. Check the WA government website before approaching." The next town has 8 bluestone buildings still standing on the coast. The pearling fleet that built them moved north in 1886. The buildings have been waiting ever since. The strangest thing about Cook is not that it is abandoned. It is that 4 people chose to stay. Cook, far east of Western Australia, on the Trans-Australian Railway, in the middle of the Nullarbor Plain. The town sits on the longest dead straight stretch of railway in the world, 478 kilometres without a curve. Cook was built as a railway service town in 1917. At its peak, around 40 people lived there permanently, and it had a school, hospital, swimming pool, and small store. By the 1990s, privatisation of the rail services emptied the town almost completely. Today, the permanent population is 4. The Indian Pacific train still stops here twice a week to refuel. You step off the train. The platform is concrete. The sky covers everything. There are abandoned houses with their doors swinging. The old hospital sign reads, "If you are crook, come to Cook." The pool is empty and cracked. The wind is the only sound. The next town in any direction is at least 300 kilometres away. Cook actually sits over the South Australian border, but the rail corridor is serviced from Western Australia, and the town shows up on every WA abandoned places list for that reason. The Indian Pacific uses Cook as its only stop on the Nullarbor crossing. Cook has no road access for ordinary vehicles. The only way in is by railway. Temperatures swing from above 45 Celsius in summer to near freezing on winter nights. 12 places, 12 ways a town can end. Mining boom, mining bust. Asbestos, cyclone, water, road rerouting, railway privatisation, and a pearling fleet that moved north. The pattern is the same. They were built quickly, around one industry, and when that industry left, almost no one stayed. If any of these places interest you, do 3 things before you go. Check the WA government website for road closures and contaminated zones, especially around Wittenoom. Confirm fuel and water before you leave Perth, Kalgoorlie or Karratha. Carry a satellite communicator because mobile coverage drops out long before you arrive. Which of these 12 would you drive to, and which is too remote even for you? Drop it in the comments. I read all of them.